where people could issue certificates, PRN, packaging recovery notes. Those would have a value in the market, and your Tesco, for instance, go into the market and buy these certificates as evidence that your packaging or the equivalent tonnage that you have could be recycled. Okay? The problem is that in the UK, local authorities and municipalities are all being required to recycle at their own cost, and the consequence of that is that that material that is being required to be recycled as packaging is coming out anyway. So the value of the PRN is £1, £2. It's very little. And yet in Germany, the value of the PRN, or the value of the levy, is supporting an infrastructure. So we've actually passed the burden of delivering on the packaging waste, which should have been targeting industry and helping them to reduce the packaging and take responsibility, is actually been passed to the municipality who have to deliver on recycling in any case. So that's a bit of a view I have. Others may see it differently, but it's what's happening. And then we have electronic waste recycling. Then a couple of years ago, we start to look at a more complicated approach. One of the things we do is, as soon as we define waste, it becomes waste. It's subject to regulation and control. To get out of that position and to use that material in a really effective way, we've got to get it taken from that state of waste. And so we introduce end of waste criteria. But the targets that we're now setting in recycling in the broader sense is a construction waste recycling target of 70%, which we will generally meet. Belgium, for instance, is at 95% recycling on that. But we have to now meet a 50% recycling rate on paper, glass, metal, plastic by 2020. So we've got a recycling target now coming out of Europe. Okay, nothing else to mention there. Now let me bring you to Scotland then. I want to talk about zero waste now with you a little bit more. We've introduced a zero waste plan for Scotland. We've set a target of 70% recycling by 2025. We have also said that we want to see energy from waste. Yes, but only where we can show that there's no more environmental or economic benefit to be gained by further recycling. Yeah? So that gives us a bit of wriggle room if we want to burn more waste. But essentially there's a bit of a cap around 25% of our waste. That's how it will look. That can only go to energy recovery. Generally, zero waste and energy don't mix with energy recovery. Those who advocate zero waste are generally coming at it to take waste out of society, not take it out from landfills. So, out of that has come these regulations I'm going to just touch on. And these are quite interesting because they're actually taking us into a new realm and a new challenge. First thing is that every business in Scotland is going to require and must have in place separate recycling facilities. Every business is going to require it. Okay? That's new, that's a challenge. It's going to be regulations. It's going to be enforced. Okay? Because commercial waste presents itself with lots of cardboard, lots of homogeneous material. We can do more with it. If you're a food reprocessor, or you manufacture foods in any shape or form, you're going to have food waste recycling as well. It's going to be mandatory. And just to make sure you comply, anyone who's running a landfill site is going to have certain materials banned from that landfill. And those will be these materials. So there's a real challenge on in how we're going to frame that. But under the permitting system of the landfill, there'll be inspection systems put in place, and there'll be a requirement to pull as much out as we can. Right? And remember, because we have such a data-intensive and complex licensing system being reported to our Environment Agency, there's no escape. Fly tipping, sending it offshore, whatever, there's no escape. This is controlled and this is factual. This is the material we're dealing with. If we're going to send material to energy from waste plants, then we have to have recycled that material. So if you want wood and plastic for your incinerator, hey, bad news. If I can recycle that, that's the preferred route. So real challenges around calorific value, thermal treatment performance of incineration. So pressures on the incineration route. And local authorities, municipalities will be required to collect food waste. Okay. Carbon metric. This is an interesting concept, and I think it's the first it's been developed in the world. That's an interesting concept. Rather than express our recycling rates in terms of weight, why don't we have a go at expressing it in terms of carbon? So, I think rubble, for instance, an aggregate, has a low carbon emission impact. Yeah? But if we take aluminium and recycle aluminium, it means we don't have to process bauxite, highly energy intensive system. For every ton of aluminium, it's 9 tons of carbon. So why don't we express our recycling rate in terms of carbon? So this is our idea in Scotland, and we're hoping that others will see the benefits of this. Okay? So we do a lot of work on life cycle methodologies to determine materials that work its way back into back into manufacturing, and we come up with a carbon emissions multiplier on recycling. And what we discovered, strangely enough, is that textiles comes out top. Textiles comes out top. So if we increase our textile recycling, so that 1% of our material that we're now collecting as a municipal authority is textile, it adds 24 percentage points onto our recycling figure. So the European target was 50% by tonnage. Our 70% is based on this carbon factor. So we're being driven now to think very carefully about what materials we're going to recycle. Right? It's no longer enough to take the heavy stuff and say, hey, we're doing good. We're going to take the most carbon-intensive materials out. Okay? And that's going to be applied to waste minimization, to business waste, and so on. So you'll find that on the Scottish Government's website. I was involved in the development of that, in a sense that I was working with my professional body to check it, make sure government was being robust in the methodology.